Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, where we'll be discussing delivering a unified Agile PPM solution with Microsoft PowerApps. My name is Doug Welsby, and I'm the channel manager here at Wicresoft. I'm also joined by my colleagues Jim Patterson, our director of sales, and Matt Willey, our one-plan product specialist. During today's webinar, attendees will be on mute and the line will not be open for questions. However, feel free to use the GoToWebinar question feature to submit questions. I will address these questions during the webinar and will respond via email if we do not get to your specific question. If for some reason you get distracted or pulled away from the webinar, no need to worry, as I will be emailing a link to the presentation once it has been posted to our YouTube channel. And with that, I'll now turn the presentation over to Jim, who will be handling the webinar.
Thanks, Doug. I appreciate the introduction, and I'm very pleased to be here, and thank you all for joining us today for this a very exciting topic. Let's just talk about the landscape of what's driving the need for solutions like we're going to talk about today. We are fully in the age of digital transformation. And what that means is even traditional brick and mortar type companies are at their core becoming software companies to take advantage of different business models that leverage this digital age. And it doesn't matter whether they're department stores or streaming services or transportation or even getting soft drinks within our fast food restaurants. Or I was in a movie theater last night doing that same type of computerized soft drink experience. The idea is that things that were traditionally more physically delivered are being delivered electronically, meaning that we have more and more software development and technology and innovation type projects that are going on in our portfolios. And it impacts everybody in the organization, whether it's the executives that have to develop strategy and come up with new business models for reaching the customers that take advantage of these new advances, the PMOs that have to manage a more diverse set of types of projects, including product development and more technology and software development, the software development folks that have to get these development projects or initiatives out in a faster, more regular type of cadence. And then as we come up with these changes, our support organizations have to support this new technology as it evolves and it keeps emerging and coming out on a more continuous basis. So the idea is there's disruption, there's change within our organizations. And on top of that, because of this new market reality, the speed or the pace of change continues to accelerate, meaning we have to be more responsive than we ever have before in the past in order to stay with the market, to take advantage of what customers expect, and just to be relevant in the new marketplace. As we looked in the prior stage, what happened to the blockbusters of the world as opposed to what we're doing with streaming services today? If you don't keep up, you're going to get left behind. And if we look at just some of the dynamics in the marketplace today of what workers who have to support this new type of methodology expect, now our work happens everywhere. We have distributed teams. We have people that are working virtual. We have a global type of workforce. So work happens everywhere. And we need the transparency then, an easy way that everybody, no matter where they are, can actually get visibility in the big picture into what we're working on. In that trend, analysts say that 50% of companies will actually take what's considered IT PMOs today and integrate them into more of an enterprise PMO or an ePMO hub by 2021, which is a pretty bold move. And they also estimate that 80% of companies will have an ePMO by 2023. So that is a trend that we're seeing across the marketplace and that the analysts tend to validate. Also, because of the proliferation of the cloud and the ease of access to just get individual cloud-based tools, people managing projects and work efforts are choosing their own tools at the team level, meaning we have a lot of shadow IT and tools that are going on, which lends itself to a proliferation of a variety of tools and different work methods that people are using in their organizations. So the driver behind this is that teams and people want to work how they want to work or work in ways that are most conducive to the type of work that they're doing. It says in the analyst projections and current state of the market is that 73% of companies are currently using agile methods for managing projects and somewhere in the organization, meaning the emergence of agile continues to grow. Though not everybody is doing Agile, it says that almost a like number, 69% of companies are also using predictive project management, more traditional things like waterfall types of approaches that we've used historically over the past in project management. So it seems to be a pretty close to even split on the types of things that we're managing and the ways that we're managing these types of work. Also, our teams want simple visual tools. In the past, project management sometimes used complex tools that require a lot of training and expertise and domain expertise in order to be able to use them effectively. Now, they want tools in the modern workplace to help them start fast, that don't require a lot of training, that are more intuitive. What's driving this somewhat is kind of the way we're used to having more apps on our mobile solution that are easy to just install and start using. And that's what the millennial workforce tends to expect these days. Right now, 50% of the workforce will be comprised by millennials by 2020. That's just next year. And the demographics show, and the trends in demographics show, that 75% of the workforce will be comprised of millennials by 2025. So we have to cater or address this marketplace and the expectations or the desires so that people get tools that are easy for them to use, and then they're tools that they want to use rather than tools that they're forced to use. And then, our key processes span the enterprise. We have different functional areas in our companies often, and our projects require input and participation by these different functional silos, I guess I'll call them, across that. Meaning, what we need now is the need to have to adapt and have automated tools that are integrated. The analysts say that 79% of companies need cross-functional collaboration to get their work efforts done. And 65% of large organizations will enable non-IT staff to perform integrations by 2023, meaning non-IT driven, non-developer driven types of integrations that business users with tech savvy can actually do these integrations to get some of these tools and processes working together in the marketplace. And that's what's going to be required moving forward. So given some of these things, we have case after case in the clients that we work with that are suffering from a proliferation of tools across the organization, as we found that teams are picking their own tools. In this matrix from an example that really reflects something we had with a client. If you look down the left-hand side, all the different capabilities you might find in PPM, demand management, portfolio management, project management, time management, reporting and analysis, and then you look at the functional areas across the top, and you look at the tools that are being used from Jira, Outlook, Excel, Power BI, Azure DevOps, and et cetera. For different features and functions, a bunch of these tools are being used, so meaning we have pockets of information that are really not talking to one another across an organization, and this leads to some dysfunction or inefficiencies in the way we're doing work. And PMI says in its paper of capturing the value of project management through organizational agility, even though Agile is a trend, it says that a blended of approaches may be the best thing for most organizations. It says that smart organizations realize that using Agile techniques such as Scrum or DevOps is not the only or even the best indicator of an organization's speed or flexibility, and that most Agile organizations are more likely to use several different project management approaches. So if we look at the graph there, just Agile and iterative, lean, waterfall, or even extreme programming. The idea there, a combination of these things and using an approach that's conducive to the type of work done, and then having a mix of that tends to be what might be most effective for most organizations. And with this move to Agile, a lot of folks are going through Agile transformations as well within their organization. And most of them started using more traditional PPM across the board, more governance-related, more command control types of approaches, and on the left-hand side. But as they start a move to Agile, there's kind of different spheres. For example, even if the goal is to get all the way over to the left where they're a full Agile shop and they do everything in an Agile or a lean fashion, there's going to be a transitionary period where there's a hybrid of both Agile and non-Agile methods, processes, and tools. Or for some folks, there's a reality or an acknowledgement that not all projects will ever be done fully Agile, and that they'll have a mix of both Agile and maybe traditional type of waterfall projects for the foreseeable or ongoing future. And they may stay in that hybrid mode. And the idea is we have to have tools and processes that are conducive to the fact that most people will either be transitionary in that hybrid mode, or they will stay in that hybrid mode for long periods of time. So with the proliferation of tools and people at different places in those agile transformations, we often end up with disconnected systems and processes. These silos are just some that we see that apply to work management and project management. So we have service management tools for the more unstructured work with tickets and incidents and things like that, and things like ServiceNow or Salesforce Service Cloud or Microsoft Dynamics for those types of things. We've got more traditional project management that's done in Microsoft Project or a variety of other tools, or some people even use things like SharePoint or Excel to just do traditional project management. And on the application management or software development side of the house, things like Visual Studio, Azure DevOps with Azure boards built in, or things like Jira or version 1 are being used for Agile. And these are just some examples. This is just a subset of what we see in the marketplace. But work is being managed in parallel processes. There's multiple tools or entry points or repositories of information, and they end up with silos of information that have to be brought together both manually through mashing up data. So in supporting these multiple delivery modes, just in a simplistic fashion, if you look at two different modes, which is mode 1, which is more traditional PPM, that is more waterfall type of focused, and governance focused in traditional project and portfolio management that PMOs often have, is that the analogy there is that of a marathon runner. Projects managed with longer cycle times or phases, stages, gates. And the idea is that there's a stability and a kind of a common approach where you plan and then just march to that plan as you go on through. And then you have agile projects, things in software development or new product development, where the idea here is you want to be more iterative. You want to have shorter delivery times and maybe deliver in smaller increments to be able to be responsive and change on a dime, to be able to respond to the marketplace or your customer. And the analogy there is more of a sprinter, iterations and shorter cycle times, and using approaches like Agile, Scrum, Lean, Kanban, etc. So the idea is that they're not an either or that we're finding in the marketplace. It's really the art of managing two separate yet coherent modes of delivery. One is focused more on stability and steady as she goes type of approach, and the other focused on agility and speed. So we find, and the analysts find, is the goal is to how to find the right balance. How do we use just enough governance, visibility, insight, alignment, and control within an organization so that the PMO and our executive leadership can understand where we're at with our investments at any given point in time, yet provide enough agility to the teams and the development and product organization so that they can innovate, allocate time to innovation, and so they can respond with quicker time to market and be responsive to changes as they occur. So with that, Gartner is saying the current marketplace and approach to PPM is what they're calling adaptive PPM. It's for today's fast-paced business environment. Adaptive meaning that we're responsive to managing a pipeline of work, and we're constantly measuring our investments against potential and actual returns, and then being able to quickly change direction without disrupting the flow of the organization. It's also an approach to decide which initiatives to invest in, how much to invest in, when to stop investing so that we can actually respond. Add things, swap things, or even kill things if they're not going to meet our goals or if the circumstances change. And it really looks at overall enterprise value management in the context of programs and portfolios or product lines. Also, it ensures organizational resources are being allocated or spent in the most effective way, and that people are doing the things in areas that are most important to the organization. And if we have different types of work streams that are related to one another, that these interwoven streams of work can be delivered successfully. And as part of this adaptive PPM concept, if you look at that, there's all kinds of portfolios that can be managed within an organization, and some are the more popular ones are identified here. The traditional project portfolio that we're used to seeing, a program portfolio where a program might be a product line or a product or some initiative-based types of things, an IT service portfolio that incorporates that unstructured work that we talked about, and even a product management portfolio where we have product roadmaps that we're trying to deliver to the marketplace. These may be today being managed as separate portfolios, but we need to bring those together so we can have a cohesive approach. And if we look at this, if we do this correctly, we might be able to provide a single source of truth, be able to have an automated consolidation of information from a variety of sources and tools, where today we're doing labor-intensive manual mashups of that data so that we can just get some type of reporting out of that, which tends to be an inefficient use of valuable resource time. And then also, we still need to be able to support teams that use a variety of tools and execution methods, whether it be waterfall, whether it be agile, whether it be some type of hybrid approach, and whether or not they're using different tools for that perspective. If we do this correctly, we can provide the transparency we need to make better business decisions faster. We can make quick adjustments to shifting priorities and market changes. And then we can balance investments and resources with demand to optimize business value with our capacity to apply resources and dollars to respond to those things and understand that we're investing in the right things at any given time. So hence, with Microsoft, the emerging direction for Microsoft for business solutions is the Power Platform. It is a platform that allows you to customize, extend, and build a solution you need using this Power Platform and incorporating technologies like Power BI, Microsoft Flow for integration and business process and workflow, for example, and PowerApps, which is the actual platform, the application developer within the Power Platform that allows you to build code or low code or no code applications within the solution. So it's easy to build apps. It's designed so that a developer is not needed in some cases to build simple applications, where you can use a graphical interface to build what you want and then actually have the system itself build the code behind the scenes. Connect to any data. So if you have other data sources or other tools, they're providing a ability to connect to a common data source and be able to use enterprise governance and security so that we have some robust capabilities in that area that may not be available with simple tool sets. And the ability to extend or integrate is built into this PowerApps platform. And this is the trend, and this is where Microsoft's moving with their platform for business solutions. All right, so now if we look at the Power Platform, look at the things that might be included there. And it can incorporate, if you look across the top, Office 365, Microsoft Planner, Microsoft Project, Azure DevOps, etc., variety of work tools. If you actually incorporate these into PowerApps types of solutions, it includes an application designer, a form designer, a different view designer, a dashboard designer, and even a Canvas studio for building quick mobile optimized types of apps to get into that data. And then using Flow for workflow and business process. And on the back end, have a repository called the Common Data Service, which would be leveraged by many of your applications and have a common repository so that the mashup of that data isn't required manually. And then an ever-growing number of connectors so that you can connect to Microsoft and not Microsoft tools as a non-IT developer or as a business user to leverage these things in a very connected and integrated way. And then Wicresoft has really taken this concept and we've embraced it. We've actually been working on this for over a year and working with Microsoft on the new direction on this. And some of the stuff, we've been working with as a gold certified partner to take advantage of this. And we've actually come up with pre-configured Power Apps for these solutions for adaptive PPM. And in this case, we can actually connect a variety of tools and bring them together into a common portfolio regardless of the tool set or the methodology that's being used. In the graphic you see to the right, we're looking at a portfolio in Power Apps that allows us to look at a roll-up of all work efforts, but the details or the execution of these things might be coming from a variety of tools. The graphic shows on the left Office 365 Planner. It shows Microsoft Project. It shows Azure DevOps. It can also include things like Jira and other non-Microsoft tools in the mix on this. And the idea is that this is the wave of the future, leveraging the Power Apps platform. And if we look at what one plan does, it provides resource capacity planning, overall portfolio planning, and even detailed financial planning on a time, phase, and categorized basis to provide the needs that most people need when financials is important to the mix in their doing their PPM solutions. And execution, the ability to have work plans, do time tracking, or even do the difference between traditional waterfall or task list-based work plans versus more agile, backlog-based and sprint or iteration-based, the ability to incorporate all those tactical aspects and feed into the portfolio is something that this one-plan pre-configured solution in PowerApps can deliver. So some of the functional areas, things like demand management, where you can have basically forms that allow you to capture the information for demand and to vet and then to have enough information to approve and move forward with ideas and project requests and have some analytics around that. On the portfolio side, be able to basically do prioritization, portfolio visibility, rationalize your portfolio with your ability to meet your resource capacity or financial budget constraints, and even look at them graphically in things like portfolio boards and other reports around that. The financial management, be able to look at that closely and have reports around that. Resource management from a capacity planning perspective and be able to rationalize that and manage that in an easy web-based fashion. And did traditional project management, as I mentioned before, to use a variety of tools and execution, but have it all feed into the same portfolio or PPM system. And on the collaboration side, we can even render this stuff and incorporate this in your use of Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams is now the fastest adopted tool ever produced by Microsoft in the history of all the things that they put out and all the historically successful products they've had. And people more and more that we talk to are saying, what can we do with this in Teams? And be able to incorporate and do everything you're going to see today in Teams is something that's possible to do as well. And all the things you might do around just work execution, also managing things like risk, issues, changes, lessons learned, are all incorporated in this pre-configured solution, as well as status reports that become a natural output of the process so that you're not manually creating these things every reporting cycle. And if you want to capture time from an actuals perspective, there's timesheet capability built into this, as well as just overall analytics and integration so that we bring this data together and get the visuals that we need to address the needs of our different stakeholders, executive leaderships, and other interested audiences that we have on a reporting basis. So with that, those are the concepts of what we're going to talk about today. A unified solution using the most modern approaches that Microsoft is taking to the market, and then showing how Wicresoft is already here today to deliver those things, and we're ready to deliver based on those things. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Matthew Willey, and he's going to give you a demonstration of these things in action.
Perfect, thank you, Jim. I'm logged in here into PowerApps. Along the left-hand side, you can see my navigation, and right now we're on a high-level dashboard page. And we'll walk through the whole process from start to finish of how a project can come to be, how you can do some portfolio analysis around it, manage it, and track it all the way through closing it out, whether it be Agile or Waterfall. So the first thing that we can do is we can put in some project requests or ideas into the system for new projects that we want to do. When we do that, we can capture some high-level information here, things like, how much is it going to cost, how much benefits do we think we're going to get from it, and we can start to do some light prioritization at that point too. We can get a prioritization score based off of the choices that people make. Via Flow, we can then push those into our project list when we're ready to do so, so that we can kind of keep our project list clean, things that we're not going to do anytime in the near future and or maybe never want to do. We can leave here and those can kind of stay in the parking lot. Things that you do have interest in and are looking to look into it a little bit further, we can convert those on into the next level here. Those projects can be related back to different portfolios and different programs so that you can organize those projects in meaningful ways and then report and group up things into those programs and portfolios. So here what I'm looking at is a list of all the different portfolios I have going on right now. You can see some high-level status information around those portfolios, and I can click into one, like say cloud and mobile first here, and I can see all of the details around that particular portfolio. Who owns it, who's the sponsor, so on and so forth around this particular portfolio. There's also a timeline here, and there is on every entity here in PowerApps, which allows you to see any activities that's going on. This interacts with Outlook, so if you're sending emails related back to this portfolio, they'll automatically come in here, and you can add in notes and other things into the mix as well as needed. If I flip to the financials tab, I can now see all my portfolio level financials right here. So we've budgeted $9.5 million for this portfolio. And as we start to go and build out our projects below it and build budgets for those projects, that rolls up and we can see, okay, we've estimating we're going to spend about $4 million on all of those projects. So you can see there is a remaining budget here that we can go and spend. So that as new projects come in, we're going to be using that remaining budget on those projects while making sure that we don't go over what we were budgeted for this portfolio as a whole. And then we can compare things like benefits and get ROIs and so on and so forth. I can look at the status of this portfolio. Are we on track, at risk from an overall perspective, a financial perspective, schedule, effort perspective? How many active projects do we have going on? How many of those projects are at risk? 2 of them. How many are off track? 1 of them. And so we can really start to get some roll-ups and look across this portfolio and better understand how the portfolio as a whole is doing. From there, if I click on programs, we can then see all of the related programs to this portfolio. In this case, at the top level, we have portfolios, then we have programs, the level in the middle, and then projects down at the bottom. But this is configurable, so we can make this match your hierarchy. Maybe you only do projects and programs. We can remove that top level, that portfolio level. Or maybe you have a different hierarchy. We can configure the system to match that as well. But in this case, you can now see all the programs that are related back to this portfolio and the status of those different programs here. And if I click into one like world-class customer support, then it will take me into that program, and I can see a lot of the same information here, but it's all at the program level. So I'm looking at the program level information. Who's the owner of just this program? What state is this program in? So on and so forth. I can also then browse to my financials tab and see, okay, for this program, I have $4.5 million. And we've built some projects below it, and those projects budgets all add up to about 2.7. And we have some actual costs starting to roll in on those projects as well. And so we can see how much budget we have remaining and so on and so forth here at the project level, as well as the project status. And then this last tab here will then take me and show me all of those related projects that are related to this particular program. From here, I can see all those projects, the high-level status of them, and if I want more detail, I can click into them here. Or I could also come here and go into the full list of projects that I have access to across all portfolios and programs, and I could, see a list of all that, have my one pane of glass, so to say, where this all lives, and then jump into any particular one from here right now. So as we're going through this process, before we actually even approve a particular project, there's some things that we might want to do before we say, yes, yes, we're going to do this, and here's when we're going to do it. And so you'll fill out some high-level information around your project as it's coming through, either from a project request or if you create it directly here within the project list. Who's the owner, who's the manager, when do we estimate we're going to start this? And then so on and so forth. And across the top here, you'll see that there's a business process flow built in here that allows us to go from one stage to the next. As we do that, we can require certain information to be filled out before you can move on to the next stage. We can send out email notifications as well as require approvals before you can move from one stage to the next in these particular processes. So that can help you to put some governance around this and make sure that things are going through the proper steps before they, become active. As I'm going through this process, one of the very first things I might want to do is go and build out a business case. Why should we do this project? So I can put in a description, a business case, a value statement, and I can start doing some prioritization around this as well. We can do a more traditional prioritization where we track business drivers, things like how strategically aligned is this to our business, how much is this going to improve employee retention, how much is this going to help us lower costs, and what's the risk? And based off of your choices, it will generate a weighted score here. The higher the score, the better, essentially. And again, this is configurable, so we could set this up, with any different choices you want here and whatever weights you want on those choices to then calculate out this score. But we can also do more modern or agile types of scoring methods. In this case, we have a lean prioritization section here, which is using WSJF, or weighted shortest job first. And so basically you put in points values, the business value you think this is going to give, the risk reduction you think it's going to give, the time criticality, and the swag. And based off of all of those inputs, it will then give you a WSJF score. The higher, the better, again. And we can use those things as we're doing prioritization to make some more objective and better choices. And we'll see that a little bit more later on. Going down the line here, the next thing that I might need to build out around this project before we actually start, get approved and start executing on it, is we need to better understand the high-level budget over time, as well as the high-level resources that we're going to need over time. Do we need one person, 3 people, 10 people, and what types of people do we need? Do we need developers, a project manager, QAs, business analysts? And for how long do we think we're going to need them for? Is it 3 months, 6 months, a year, 3 years? To get a better idea of the scope from a resourcing perspective. And so I can come in here and I can build my resource plan. And you'll notice I can either use generic resources like developer and project manager, meaning I don't yet know who's going to be working on this project. And maybe I don't necessarily need to at this point, but we need to better understand the types of resources and how much you're going to need. And we can also do named resources though. So if you're working with smaller pools of resources, you already know who might be working on this project and or you need a specific person, then you could put that in your resource plan here. I can plan in hours or I could plan in percents or FTEs. So you could just come and say, I need someone 50% for the next 6 months or 100% or whatever it might be. And as you're actually looking for resources, you can utilize the Find Resources option here to come in and I want to find resources, say by role. I'm looking for a developer and it'll show me then all of the developers as well as the generic developer here. You can see who's already available here and what other projects they're already set to work on within that particular period of time. So when you're looking for resources to pull into your resource plan, you can get visibility into workload right at that point. And then if there's any conflicts later on, a resource manager has its own views that they can use to, resolve conflicts and such. And we'll see that a little bit later as well. So now that I have my resource plan built out here, then the next piece that I'll generally do is go and build out a budget. So I can switch to my financial view here. And the very first thing I can do is hit import, and it will import my costs for my labor, basically from my resource plan. So based off of those resources I just asked for, it multiplies that by the blended rates that I would have configured in the system, and it will give me what my labor cost estimates will be for each of my different roles, and then that rolls up to the labor totals as a whole and shows me, okay, I'm going to need about $328,000 for labor for this project. From there, I can then key in all of the other costs that I might need, things like materials and their supplies, travel expenses, contract software, other. And this is configurable as well, so we could match this to however you want to break out your costs into different cost categories. You may notice we can also break this up into capital and or operational expenses as needed as well, so you can have that breakout when you're doing your budgeting and planning and such. Right now, I'm planning by month. And I was doing so in the resource planning as well, but anytime I can actually switch that to quarter or to year or down to week if you choose to do so, depending on what level of detail that you want to plan at. Later on in the financial planner here, I can also go and build out a forecast or actuals for these particular projects. And from those actuals there, we can integrate with other financial systems you might be using like SAP, Oracle, etc. And then we can compare them. So I can say I want to compare my budget to my actuals, and it will give me a heat map here to show me where I'm over or under in any particular period of time, so I can see if I'm on track for what we had initially planned once we actually get started on this particular project. So once you have your high-level resource plan, your high-level budget plan, and your prioritization information filled out, then we can use the portfolio analyzer to really go and do some portfolio planning, some prioritization, and really build out your roadmap of when all of these things can and will happen, what we want to do and when, within our constraints. We only have so much resources, we only have so much budget, so we have to make sure we stick within that. So now what I'm looking at here is the portfolio analysis module, and I'm going to pop it into full screen mode so we have lots of real estate here to work in. And what we're looking at is a list of all of our different projects and the status of those. And you can see here that some of these projects are being managed in different tools for the execution if they're already in progress. So some are using Project Desktop, some are using Azure DevOps, some have Teams groups associated to them for collaboration. I have a Jira project here. Some use the Office 365 Planner. And so once we get to the execution side of this, and we'll see that in just a second, we'll be able to use multiple different tools to actually manage the execution. But before we even get into that, we have to figure out what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, a more top-down planning, and make sure that stays within the resources and the budget that we have. So I'm going to flip to my prioritization view here. And Once in the prioritization view, I can then utilize my filters to filter this down and just look at the projects that I want to prioritize right now. For example, I could focus in on just a particular portfolio. I just want to prioritize those. I'm focusing on those. Or maybe a particular business unit or whatever it might be. And so you can just look at the list that you want. And the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go into prioritization mode, so where I can just drag and drop and create a stacked rank of my priorities for these projects. While I'm doing that, though, there's information that I want to look at. I want to see things like what was the prioritization score, or that WSJF, depending on which way you're doing your scoring, while making those decisions of where these things should lay out. I also want to see things like benefits and budgets and whatever else I might need. And you could put other things in here, ROI, NPV, IRR, any other metrics that you might want to see in your view that you're tracking while you're doing this process. And so I could just come in and sort these things and just sort them by prioritization score and go, this is our priorities, this is the highest one, this is the lowest one. But a lot of times people want to have more control around this than that. And so I know that this project here is a government compliance project, so even though it doesn't give me the most business value, doesn't have the highest score, I might need to bump that up here pretty high on my list. Or the CEO told us we had to do this, or whatever it might be. So I can simply drag and drop, move these things around and go, okay, this is my highest priority project, this is my lowest priority project, while getting visibility into the prioritization information. Once you've done that, you now have your priorities set. I can start to overlay things like cost on top of this and make sure that if we do these projects where people are asking them to be done, or which projects can we do, that we're going to stay within our budget. So now what it shows me is all the different projects and all the budgets all rolled up here, so we can see totals of those across the top of how much we are currently, anyway, looking at spending in any particular month. Again, I could collapse this up by quarter or year, whatever level of detail that I want to look at. And I can apply a target on top of that. So essentially, I could say in FY19 or FY20, depending on what your planning window is that you're looking at here, I only have so much money that I can spend within any period of time. And so you can see here in each month what my budget is. And then based on how much is actually rolling up against that, we can see it go red, yellow, or green if we're within our budget for these periods of time. Once we have that, we now have to figure out how we're going to stay within this budget. If we do everything the way it's set to be done right now, you can see we're going to have some budget issues in a lot of different places. And so one option is we can simply say, well, what if we don't do some of these lower priority projects and or put them on hold? And so I can uncheck them here, and when I do that, it will then refresh my screen down below, and it will show me, now you can see I have a lot more green when I start getting rid of some of those lower priority projects, because we don't have to spend the budget on those anymore. If it's not a matter of if we can do it or not, if it's really more of a matter of when can we do it, then you also have the option here of popping open the Gantt over on your right side. I can look at this by month or by quarter, whatever level of detail that I might want. And what I can do is I can take some of these lower priority projects down here and I can simply drag and drop them out. Maybe I want to move this out a quarter, 2 quarters, and stagger these things a little bit better so we're not spending all that money all at once. Kind of spreads things out a little bit more. And that's another way that we can figure out a plan to get this done within our budget. And so then we can save those as scenarios and come back to them at any time. Scenario A, we don't do these bottom 4 projects. Scenario B, maybe we just move them out a couple quarters. And we can pick and choose as a business how we want to handle that. The same things we were doing here on the cost side, we can also do from a resource perspective. So if you're constrained by resources, which many of us are, we can see how if we do this plan that's currently laid out, how that's going to affect our resources and where there's going to be problems. And we can make those same types of adjustments, checking and unchecking and dragging and dropping, and then see that update accordingly so that we can come up with a plan that's going to keep us within our resource constraints as well. Once you have the plan the way you want, you can lock that in and really start going at that. While I'm here, though, there's a couple also cool features that you can do while you're doing your portfolio planning. I can jump into my Kanban board and I can visually see all of my different projects organized by state and totaling it up into the different swim lanes here. As things need to be updated, I can drag and drop if I have permissions to do so. And I can group this up any which way I might want. So maybe I want to group this by priority, or maybe I want to group this by other other things, then you can come in here and group it up any which way you want, maybe by portfolio, and see how each project aligns to a different portfolio. And then you can even color code these based off of, say, overall health, which is what I'm doing right now. So the green ones are doing good, the yellow ones are at risk, the red ones are off track. So it's a nice Kanban board at a high level of your portfolio. And there's also a roadmap view. So if you need to communicate to stakeholders, where these things are laid out, when they can expect them to happen based off of the current plan, this is a nice, clean, easy view of that you can give to people, and you can group it up different ways as well. Right now I'm looking at it by month, but I could switch this to by quarter or year or week, depending on what level of detail you want. And you might notice that there are some lines between these. You can create dependencies between your different projects to show where if something slips, another thing is going to slip as well, and to really give a nice picture around that. And then I could even print that out and send that to someone, and/or there are Power BI reports that show very similar views that you could utilize to communicate this as well. While I'm here, there's also a dashboard that I can jump into. We have a pre-built set of reports, and we'll look at those in a little bit more in detail a little bit later on. But right from here, I could come in and I could look at my portfolio level reports and see how everything is doing and get lots of information. And this is powered by Power BI, so everything here is connected. So for example, if I click on the red part of this donut chart here and just want to see my off-track items, I can do that and such, and get all kinds of visibility into different areas, whether it's resources or costs or whatever it might be. Many different pre-built reports in here that you can utilize to get visibility into that portfolio right from here. So now that I've done my portfolio analysis and I've picked and choose which projects I'm going to do and when I'm going to do them, now I'm ready to get more into the execution side of things. And whether this project lends itself better to being agile or waterfall, or maybe a hybrid, a mixture of both, I can pick and choose the right execution tool that makes the most sense for that project. So I'm going to go into one of my projects, that one we were in earlier, support customers using mobile. I'll come into my project here, and let's say it's been approved and I now need to go do my detailed planning. I have options. So I'm going to flip into my plan tab, which we were at earlier, but we're now going to get more into the execution side of things. So I have a couple different options here. If this is a waterfall project, then I could come into the schedule view here, and I could create my waterfall schedule either via the online planner, or if you have Microsoft Project Desktop and want to use Microsoft Project Desktop and have trained PMs and such, you'll see this particular one is actually connected to Microsoft Project Professional Desktop. And so I have a related plan here to this, where I came in and I could build this out from either a schedule template or build this from scratch. And then it connects up into PowerApps, and when I'm ready, I can hit publish, and then that will publish over into PowerApps. And so I can build my schedule here and send that all into the system, so it all rolls up together, and I can get all of these views and status and reports, all within one place, instead of having separate project desktop files all over the place that make it really hard to report on when they're all separate, right? Later on, as people update status, I can also import that back into my project schedule, so I can see how that'll affect things as team members are updating status and/or time, if you're tracking time on these items as well. Within any given project, though, if this is better managed as an Agile project, then you can pick from a variety of different Agile tools to manage your backlog and let that information roll back into here as well. So you can see that I have different features, and then under that I have different user stories and tasks and bugs and such that are being managed for this particular project. And in this case, those are actually being managed over in Azure DevOps, although I could use other Agile tools like, say, Jira, via provided integrations. If I hit open item here, it will actually then open this up over in Azure DevOps for me. And I could get, even more information into the support customers using mobile Epic, in this case, that's related here. And I can see all the related information. And even if I wanted to via Azure DevOps, I could actually do a lot of the things that we've been doing right from Azure DevOps. So if I'm a development manager and I wanted to see the resource plan, for example, or the budget or whatever it might be, if we give people access to that and set this up, they could actually see that same information that we've been working with in PowerApps here in Azure DevOps as well. In any case, as you're working in Azure DevOps, like you always do, I'm building out my features and user stories and such below this particular epic. That all is then going to synchronize and roll back into here for status and for reporting and for timesheets and so on and so forth. So also, if you have a hybrid project, like you can see I have here, I could have a project schedule which I'm using to communicate timeline and maybe using it to track certain types of tasks, more waterfall things for this project. And I could use Azure DevOps to manage my Agile backlog for the certain pieces, maybe the development pieces of this project, and have it still all tie here together to one project if it's more of a hybrid type project and you want to use both. That's completely fine as well. So as I'm doing that, as I'm creating all of this different work, people can go in and then update their status. If I was in Azure DevOps, I could update my status right through Azure DevOps. If I wanted to update my work right here through PowerApps, though, there's a My Work capability that's going to show me all the different work that's assigned to me. I can then simply just check these things off to mark them as complete. If I have any questions, I can open up the comment stream here and ask whatever question I might have and start to get a communication going back and forth. And so this is my one place to see everything that's assigned to me and then update the status on that so that you don't manually have to keep asking people, what's the status? And then, sending email and or through meetings and such, giving you that so that you then manually put it in for them. Can really, give team members a place where they can just take care of that themselves. There's also a timesheet capability in here. If you choose to utilize it. And so the timesheet capability will take all of those different work items that are assigned to you and allow you to track time right onto those items. So I could come in and I could say, on Monday I worked this much on this, and on Tuesday I worked this much on this, and so on and so forth, and fill in my timesheet here, put in any notes, and save and submit this timesheet at the end of the week, and that can then be routed through an approval process as needed. And if I'm more of a resource manager type of a role, I can come into the resource planner view here, which is going to look across all of this work and what's going on and what's scheduled for these different projects. And it's going to show me my different resources, which I could then filter down, and I could just look at, say, my developers if I'm just interested in them, or just my business analysts, or whatever group of resources I might want to look at. I can see who's available, who's not, drill into what specifically they're currently planned to be working on. And there can be an approval and a negotiation process around this as well if needed, where people can request resources from resource managers. They can then fulfill those and send that back. If I wanted to, I could also group this up so I can see where I have shortages, for example, in what roles are we having issues. You can see developers out here starting in October are kind of over allocated as a whole. I could then dive into that and see all of my developers and dive into any particular developer and see, what they're working on. So lots of different ways that you can view this. And if you have permissions and you set it up, it's actually editable. This isn't just a view or a report. I can actually use this to drag and drop and move things and reassign things and make adjustments to resolve where there might be any conflicts across my different resources. So as that's all going on, as we're executing on these projects and all these different tools, and that's all rolling back into the system, as we're managing resources, possibly time, on both these Agile waterfall and or hybrid projects, I'm going to want to generate different reports across these to get visibility into what's going on. And so as I mentioned before, we can come right in through PowerApps and we can see these reports. These are just the out-of-the-box ones, and we have a variety of different reports available. But I could also open this up in Power BI if I wanted to do so. So if I was an executive and all I wanted was reports and dashboards and such, I don't necessarily have to go into PowerApps and have all of this noise here. I can just come right to the reports and get the information that I want. I could even subscribe to these and or subscribe other people to them. So instead of having to manually email these things out or print them, I just get an email automatically at a certain frequency, daily, weekly, monthly, however often that you would like at a certain particular time. And so there's lots of different ways people can consume these, one being through those subscriptions there. There's also a mobile app for this. And for that matter, there's a mobile app for excuse me, there's a mobile app for PowerApps as well. It has mobile capabilities built right into it, so I can work with all these things from my phone or tablet, whatever it might be, et cetera, et cetera. Lastly here, if you're an organization that's making use of Teams, as Jim mentioned, that's really taking off, it's the most popular and growing product that Microsoft has ever had, then you can actually work with these projects and such right through Teams. In this case, I have a team here for one of my projects, my VoIP phones project. I can utilize the conversations here. I can utilize the file storage within Teams. But even the things I was doing around resource planning and financial planning and such, I can actually do those right within Teams here as well, and get that Teams experience. Here's my financial plan, here's my resource plan, so on and so forth. And this is all live and working. This isn't just a screenshot or something like that. So if your team is using many different tools and capabilities, whether it's PowerApps in one plan, whether it's the Office 365 Planner or Azure DevOps, then you can hit add new tabs in here and link in all the different tools you might be using to get this project done. And it can give one cohesive place where everyone can go to work and get access into everything that's going on. Even including those Power BI reports that we're looking at. Everything here is really in a cohesive experience, so you can access it and work with it in different ways, whatever makes the most sense to you. So here in Teams, I can now look at, say, my project status report for this particular project and see the status of this project and how it's going on and what's going on with that project right here as well. So with that, hopefully you can see how you can manage all of your different projects, Agile, Waterfall, or hybrid. You can get robust reports and resource managements and timesheets and everything in between, financials, etc. on top of that. So with that, I'll turn it back to Jim for just a couple more closing notes for the day, and then we'll let you guys get out of here. So here you go, Jim.
Thank you, Matthew. And I appreciate the very comprehensive demonstration that we see. Can you see my summary and wrap-up slide?
Yes, I can.
All right, terrific. Well, let's summarize and wrap up and talk to you about maybe what some potential next steps might be. As we look through here and we look at a summary of what we discussed here today, just to wrap up, there is a modern user experience that's expected by today's workforce, and the new PowerApps approach and what you saw with this new web-based experience really addresses that requirement or that expectation that's in the marketplace today. PowerApps and the Power Platform is Microsoft's new and future for platform for business solutions. And on the back end, the common data service, where all the data is restored instead of having it segmented and scattered around the organization, provides a common repository for all projects and other work in an organization to bring this stuff all together, which is now in a lot of organizations disparate and siloed. Also, our one plan solution provides a pre-configured adaptive or hybrid PPM solution that's ready for the Power Platform, and it can incorporate tools that are appropriate for the user role, maturity, and type of work. And what you saw with Matthew's show is a variety of tools can feed into this portfolio of work. It also supports a variety of execution methodologies, whether it be waterfall, whether it be agile, or some combination or hybrid of those. And just by approving adoption can happen by streamlining access and navigation, meaning the simplicity or having people working in tools that they're most comfortable and familiar with, really streamlines that access and doesn't force people to get out of their comfort zone in working with this and having this feed in. Ultimately, this should provide a better user experience and hence drive better participation and compliance in getting the data in on a timely fashion, rather than chasing people down as much as we do today to maybe get them to get things updated. Ultimately, better collaboration across all areas of the business is really a goal and a byproduct of doing all these things. And as Matthew showed at the end, just bringing it all together in something like Teams really provides a forum or an aggregation of this stuff all into a common user window. And we can actually leverage, and Matthew showed a little bit of this, is this adaptive PPM one plan pre-configuration can incorporate and be fused into the use of Teams or Project Online or Azure DevOps, even SharePoint or Dynamics 365. So the idea, depending on what platforms you're most using within the Microsoft cloud, within your organizations, there's probably a solution or an ability to leverage what you already own and then add the value-added capabilities to that mix for you. A little bit about Wicresoft. We are a global company of substantial size and footprint. We actually were named Microsoft's 2019 Worldwide Partner of the Year, which we're proud to say, and happy to let you know that we have great experience here and have great reputation in this area. And we really are a company that's a full service provider. We provide the advisory services and consulting you might have around transformation, strategy and planning, or even how to do change management and getting these things implemented within your organization, both from a process and a tool perspective. We obviously focus on solutions by what you saw here today, whether it be implementing the Microsoft-based solutions and PowerApps, or the IP and configurations and the pre-configured things that we've developed, our own IP, and bringing those things together to give you full functional business applications. And operationally, we provide you with training and support, any consulting, or even staffing. We have a staffing part of the organization that can help you with to fill positions either on a contingent or a full-time basis to get these things done. And we even have managed delivery and managed services that allow us to, if you like, to have you outsource to us the operations and administration of these things, which we do for a number of clients. Ultimately, the message is we can support you to whatever degree you would like to be supported to get you into this type of landscape. I won't go through this today given the time we have, but we're delivering this thing for clients today. This isn't something of the future. We have clients that we're putting in adaptive PPM with PowerApps in one plan, but ultimately we're delivering on the value proposition and the promise of what these solutions have to offer. And basically, I'll let you, when you get the slides on this, look at the use case on this. The main message here is it's here today and it's being delivered to a number of clients by Wicresoft. Now, a special offer today, if you are interested in what you saw today, we can offer you a free PPM roadmap assessment where we review your current use of your PM tools or PPM tools, whether it be Project Online, Microsoft Project, or some other non-Microsoft tools. We can assess your current requirements and desired future state and determine how you would implement or migrate to the new PowerApps PPM solution. We can then ultimately provide you with an implementation roadmap for the best adoption success and let you know what the total cost of ownership might be to migrate or to get over into this type of solution. We can offer this to you all at no charge. So we can offer you this free PPM roadmap approach, or if you're not quite there yet, if you want to trial this, kick the tires, and have some Wicresoft chaperone support on this, we can provide you with a free trial exercise on a limited time basis in order to let you kick the tires. Or if you're not even ready for that yet, we did a lot of generalized demonstration in a lot of areas and very quickly because we had a compressed time frame. But we can actually, if you want to contact us, schedule a personalized one-on-one demo of these types of solutions that are more focused on your unique requirements and your process. So the idea is we're happy to do that for you as well. So please reach out to us. Also, once some of the more project-oriented things are released in public. We are under NDA. We couldn't share everything here with you today, but coming in November, we're actually going to do a roadshow where we're going to major cities into the Microsoft offices and really expound upon the Microsoft announcements that are going to happen in Ignite in early November. So stay tuned for that because we're going to be coming to a city near you. We also have a lot of content on demand and even a schedule of upcoming webinars. You probably reached that to get to this webinar here today, but us.wicresoft.com/webinars is the place to go for that, as well as to reach out to us to take advantage of these special offers. Email us at contact@wicresoft.com, or if you're interested, you can reach out to me directly if you have any questions for me directly based upon the presentation topics that we had here today. With the scheduled webinars, just letting you know our next webinar is coming up on October 3rd. It's going to be on the topic of achieving business agility through lean portfolio management. So really focused more on these lean approaches for those folks that want to do the full agile transformation or have a portion of their organization adopt a more lean portfolio management approach. That will be on October 3rd at the same time of day. That's a Thursday, just like today at 10 p.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern time. And there's a link down below that you should be able to access when you actually get the slides from us today. So with that, I'd like to wrap up and say thank you again for joining us and spending your time with us. Hopefully we demonstrated some value that you can bring back to your organization or something you'd like to pursue further with us. We really look forward to engaging with you, whether it's just initial early probes, whether it's a more immediate pain point or solution need that we can address for you, or even just tee it up with maybe building up a business case to get this promoted within your organization. Like I said, Wicresoft is here to support you on whatever level of detail or whatever level you might want. So with that, Have a great day, and thanks again.